Welcome back to another episode of the Bits No Hide podcast. Today, we are joined by someone who has worn multiple hats on campus and excelled in each one, Nidhi Kolachana. Nidhi Gi is a dual major in economics and computer science, a RAF member, and served as the ELA's treasurer in her second year. Most notably, she was the only official cultural secretary during Pearl 25, leading one of the campus's biggest fests with remarkable poise and commitment. We're excited to dive into her journey, the leadership, the learning curves, the behind the scenes of Pearl, and everything in between. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation and taking out your time for this. So, first of all, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. Like it's a nice year to look back on my third year, second year. I'm excited for this.
Okay. So, let's get started with the first question. When did you decide that you wanted to run for Cultsec and what drew you to this position specifically?
I think I decided pretty late. I think around in my two. And the reason why I took this much time to decide, because I was debating if it's worth it. Because it is a big commitment to sign up for something like this. Because once you do, the entire third year essentially goes into doing this. So around I think in my two is when I decided. And the reason that I was drawn to this specific position is because based on my previous club's experience, like when I was a treasurer in Leela's, I feel like I'd seen the scenario from that perspective, like being a club member, seeing what the issues are, doing a fest with VM. So I feel like that perspective helped me understand the issue that cultural clubs face. And then I felt I wanted to be in a position where I could do something about it. Then it felt natural that this was a position that I was interested in.
So, walk us through your campaign experience. What was your strategy to gain the voters' trust, and what was the most challenging part?
I think the main thing with campaigning, especially for an election like this, is that your main audience that you should focus on is your juniors, right? The 23 batch in my case. Because your batch still somehow has an idea, a few and seniors also know. But 23 batch is completely new to this, so they did not know. So that was the main challenge that I felt. So what my approach for that is that when I approached the juniors, which were freshers, who were in their one go, I want to be that approachable senior for her. So the focus should not be on my campaigning or what I why they should work for me. Or more I sat down with them, asked them how their college life is going, any help that they require. So I wanted them to feel that any issue, anything, they can call me first. So that is the rapport that I wanted with her. And that took time because you have a lot of people and these are all new to this. So you sit down with them, doctor. And that was the main challenge in my campaign.
Okay, so how did you approach preparing your manifesto?
So what I wanted to do with my manifesto is make it very club centric. So what I did was I sat and spoke to all the PORs of the culture clubs in that time. Also all the people who wanted to go for POL the next year. So they told me about their plans that they had. And I thought, okay, what assistance can I provide from my side? So what you see is that for most of these culture clubs, a lot of the major issues overlap. Like it's similar issues that all the clubs are facing. So once I figured out those, maybe like rooms in SAC or auditorium scheduling, that helped me get an idea, okay, so the issue people are facing and maybe I can do something about it. Yeah.
So, what do you think about how crucial the star campaigners are to win an election?
Star came in. See, it goes back to my point saying that you need them to handle the juniors, talk to the juniors, because they are not that aware of you. If you have someone who's approachable or respected for them and they vouch for you, that makes your process so much easier because the campaigning is basically about reach, like as many people as you can reach, as many people as you can speak to. So having 4 or 5 people who will be there for you and support you and vouch for you, that eases the process a lot.
So, one more small follow up on that. So, when you prepared your manifesto, was there an unexpected question asked you in your soapbox that you thought that you had prepared for it, but it caught you off guard?
I think the main thing with my soapbox is that more than the manifesto, well, there were more questions on my experience or the works that I did, like in the ELAS work that I did or the RAFA. I think that was a focus more than my manifesto. I think in general, my manifesto was able to cover all the things that people were interested in.
Okay, so your Wingy was also contesting for the same post. Uh, was it difficult for you to navigate that, like separating personal friendships and your political aspirations?
Yeah, that was a tricky situation. I think the main issue with that is that because both of us from one wing were going, I couldn't ask my wingies to help me in campaigning because that would be a conflict of interest for them thing. So luckily in that sense, I had people outside the wing who I could approach to help me campaign. And even all the small fun things like from meeting my star campaigners through them to helping me with the social media aspect of it. That luckily I was in a position to ask people. So that made it a lot easier.
Okay, so we've seen an unusual pattern with the cultural secretary position in the last few years, with Nota winning in 2023, then followed by resignation of the elected candidate in the re-elections, and then the boys' cultural secretaries resign in 2024. So, do you think that there is a sort of a curse on the post?
Okay, not curse, but yeah, it's kind of unfortunate that this is a post that every year there's something. I think, yeah. So, and it's especially unfortunate for this position because, like, culture secretaries, from forward to pearl, you have to be there. So, anytime some issue happens in the middle, it has a bigger impact than any other post because, like, throughout they are supposed to be there and supply is important. Luckily, I suppose there are two people, so that kind of maybe makes it better, but yeah.
And you had a major role like handling official cultural secretary during Pearl. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. The boys' cultural secretary, like we just said, he resigned 1 month before Pearl. So how is that experience for you managing Pearl as a solo cultural secretary, and how significant do you think his contributions were before he resigned?
Yeah, so his resignation happened at a very crucial stage, like around when we were doing the Pearl GBM, when we were preparing for that. So till then, he was fully in the loop, like we made the budget together. So it made sense for him to be there even after his resignation. So he had this out unofficially. Of course, official post was not there. But since he had the entire context, he knew what the clubs were up to. We together sat and formulated the budget, the schedule, and the overall layout was something we both worked on. We continued doing that and he was there throughout Pearl. The only difference would have been maybe like to administration needed show up all that needs to be at. Otherwise, like we were both together handling that time.
So, you are an Eco Plus CS Derlite who has attended the majority of classes as per people's observations. Plus, you were an Elas treasurer and a very dedicated rap member. So, how did you juggle with the academics with such demanding positions?
It was definitely difficult, and my CG did take a hit when I in like the third year. I think what helped me is that in my initial semester, like 1, 1, 1, 2, and 2, I did well. I kept my CG above 8 till there. So even though it fell in the later semester, it wasn't that bad. Like now I'm in a decent position where I can work with that. Because thing is, when you're handling such positions, even if you do set aside time to work on something or study, someone or the other will call you because it's a very people centric thing. So you need to address what people need when they call you for that. So in that time it's difficult, but if you have some like you studied initially or like whenever you have time, if you have that thing, that'll cushion you later on and it won't be that bad.
Okay, so did third year ever feel overwhelming, or like were there any moments where you questioned that it was too much and that you wanted to quit? So,
Yeah, I think maybe a week or 10 days before Pearl, like at the peak time, and I think there were a lot of things that we had to keep track of. That time it did feel a bit overwhelming. I'm like, okay, I can't do this, just get it over. But eventually, like as Pearl came around and we saw things, coming in place. I think I remember walking around in day one and you see activities, see the festival, like, okay, there's something like it's worth it. It's worth it that we all came together and then made this happen. So yeah, in the end, it was fine.
I think as a dualite myself, I keep hearing from my dualite seniors that, third year gets very hectic with like clubs and academics both. And I think it's really inspirational that you were the Culsec and you were able to manage academics so well. Now let's take a deep dive into Pearl. And so my first question related to that is, when does Pearl preparation usually start and what does the entire process look like?
Okay, so Pearl preparation usually, I mean, we start thinking about it around like September, October, like the mid first semester. That is the general ideation of like what theme you want, like general layout of the fest for us to work with. And then what I had in mind is that I wanted Pearl to be like a clock centric fest, like what was it clocks? Because I think so many times it's just diverted to a pro show. So our clubs to have their time to think about events, what events do they want. So that we did in like October, November. We sat down the clubs and asked them to brainstorm what kind of events would they like. Will they be able to do the publicity for that? So once we have that in mind, then we ask them to prepare the budget for the same. And that goes on to February when the GBN happens.
okay. So how do you approach your budget allocation for cultural clubs and departments by keeping personal biases in check?
Yeah, I think that is it. But I think by the time, let's say, Pearl comes around, I've already worked to make several smaller budgets, like for the Fervor and like Atmos and all. So that gives you a general idea of like what clubs actually need and how they're working with. So that helps keep the other thing in check because if you have that perspective, whatever bias here, we can compare it with that. And then you have an idea, okay, this club actually requires this much, this is what we want. So by then we get used to it. Initially, it's difficult to have that perspective. But once Pearl comes around, I think we have a general idea of how to do this.
So, how much liberty do you have versus the direction given from the president tangents?
Yeah, I think we had a lot of liberty in the sense of like clubs was completely on our thing because we were the ones who were that familiar with it. Because all the nitty gritties that clubs ask for, they are not that familiar. They don't have the time to engage this thing. How they help us is when the departments come up. So together with that command perspective is how the budget is back.
Okay, so were you anxious before the poll GPM about whether the zero deduction would pass? Because that happened 2 years ago and Atmos and Arena quorum but not met.
Yeah, I was a little bit anxious, but not as much because when it happened in my first year in Pearl 2023, we saw a very active online campaign for zero deduction, and we didn't see as much of that this time around. So we didn't think that you were that widespread of people would show up and vote zero, and luckily that did not happen as well.
Yeah, the Pearl was, I think, only fest which met the quota last year after Atmos and Marinas. That was a good thing. So, okay, now let's discuss about Pearl 25 losses. Why do you think Pearl went to financial losses last year? And what do you think went wrong? And what is something that can be improved upon for Pearl next year?
I think the main issue with the Artball, even the pearls that have come before, is that the scale of the face that we try to make in terms of expenditure, we are never able to recover that in terms of the revenue. So, like this year also, even though like our pro show scale was not as much as the year before that, we still want to make sure we tried to make sure that clubs wanted all that they want in terms of the events or like the budget that they wanted. So, all right was as almost as large scale as the year before, but we were not able to recover this in terms of revenue. So, I think one way to, obviously, there are a lot of like small changes that you will have to make to sit and do it this better this year. I think one big thing that we all can do is that be more judicious while budget making. So make sure that there's no unnecessary expenditure or something that is overboard. You can try and bring it down a bit. But the issue with this is that especially in the last 2-3 years, GB has a certain standard they expect, especially in terms of promotion. And if that is not met, then they don't feel it's worth it to come. So that you have to balance as well as making sure it's judicious. So that is something that SU will have to sit and think about every year.
Okay, so, like finding a balance between the scale of pro shows and other events.
So the thing is, the issue especially is that GB especially, I think even for Pearl, especially for the other fest, they're very closure centric. Like they don't talk about the other events, they don't focus on them. So you have to make sure you have an all-round fest in such a way that they come and engage in everything. So you're not just thinking about the closure. That is what we try to do as well.
True. I have one follow up on that. So, last year Pearl happened at the end of March. That's what it usually is, and the election season usually begins around second week of April. So, like this is an observation that the timing usually means that the outgoing SUC and the department heads, they are often nearing the end of their tenure. So, given that formally their accountability ends with their term, do you think this could be like a slight contributing factor to certain oversights or missed details on their part, which in some manner could have affected the performance of Pearl?
I don't think it's much of an accountability issue because Pearl is in itself such a large scale thing. People are all thinking about it from before. It's not that we just think about it later on. I think the major issue is that given the scale of the fest, we need to be more realistic and judicious in the initial planning itself. Because whatever targets we set, we need to make sure we reach them. So we always think that okay, we'll try and reach there. In the last few months, we'll clutch somehow, which we do to an extent, but not enough to make it a break even or a government fest. So that initial planning, if you like cut it down, like be more realistic there, then I'll make sure till the end it's fine.
Although there are no official announcements yet, there are rumors that Pearl might happen 1 week after Valentine's Day this year. So, do you think that this is a good decision? And what's your take on the timings in terms of footfall, sponsorships, and logistics?
I think this will make it much easier, especially in terms of sponsorships, because when we did per the end of March, it was the end of the financial year. So it's difficult to approach companies in that time. And also another big issue that came then is in the post-fest closing, because all the bills that you have to collect is difference in accounting, like either in this financial year or that financial year. And that usually gets a little delayed because it's the end of the semester as well. So putting this in February around Valentine's Day would make it much easier for everyone.
So, you are also the ILAS treasurer during 2023-2024. So, what did you learn from VM23, like financially not making profits? And what opportunities do you see for making it profitable this year?
I think a similar issue with that is same in the publicity that in the kind of reach that you did for that, which I think they would did better in this year. So what can be done is that it's a similar thing to Pearl. So imagine like the scale that you will, let's say comedy night or pro show. You need to make sure to get that return in hand. And one advantage that VM has that you can make it a very school centric thing as well. Because these are things that even schools will come and show up for that. So that if you make sure you have a plan from before to how to approach school, then make sure you get contingents from them. That kind of helps you with the publicity and then you can overall have a profitable list.
Okay. And a small follow up on that. So, I think the BM23 closing budget came Monday before your Pearl soapbox. So, how did you prepare for potential questions about it? Like, did you expect them?
Yeah, that was very bad timing. But yeah, I think like one defense that I had is that even though it was a loss, I was someone who's been there for the fest from like day one. So I've seen every small aspect of the fest. So I could use that as an argument that like Pearl will not be the first time I've had in the fest because all this much smaller scale, I've essentially seen the process from day one. And because it was in a loss, I had some idea of how it went wrong. So that if I'm a little bit more careful while doing Pearl, that gives me a perspective that not the other candidates had. So I can show how, we can make it a better situation given that I've seen something similar before.
Okay, so with an 8:2 gender ratio on the campus, how influential do you think that the girls' cultural secretary position is compared to the boys' culsec in actual decision making?
Well, yeah, well, given that we have a boys' cultural secretary and a girls' cultural secretary, the representation aspect is there. But I think more than that, it's also about sharing responsibilities or sharing work. Where I think people don't focus on that part, they only think about the representation. But the whole thing is because you're doing something of this scale and you're doing it throughout the year, it has to have someone beside you who's doing the exact same thing. Because you have to handle 28 different cultural clubs and other departments. So there's essential work divided. And I know that if there's some issue, there's something else going on, we can discuss it out and then work it out together. So that kind of role sharing and the responsibility sharing that helps and makes it much more smoother throughout.
So within the two of you, you had already set roles about like who was gonna handle what.
I think it just splitting roles in the sense that, like, let's say in the Senate, there were some clubs that he was closer to and some clubs that I was close to. So we sit down, like, get inputs from them and then discuss it out together and then work a plan for that.
So, Bix Hyderabad has never seen a female president before. And why do you think that could be? And why do you think like girls usually aim for Culsec or sports set rather than president or Gensec?
I think the main issue here is that the campaigning becomes much more complex if you're going for that position because you have to reach the guys' hostels and the guys there, which is so much more easier being a guy. So that hurdle, I think, is something that most girls see as something that they can't cross because the amount of access that someone in that hostel would have and being a girl is there's huge difference in that. I think that campaigning hurdle is one thing that people think about, which is why people are hesitant to approach such positions. But that if we can find ways to, make that easier, then I'm sure people will be more open to voting for it.
Do you think it goes back again to the gender ratio?
And that also. So not only is the number of people, but it's difficult for us to access. Like it's not like a public space where everyone will be there because the core of campaigning happens only in hostels. Because how much ever you have public gatherings outside, the main thing is going up to people's wings and talking to them. So that access issue is what makes it very difficult.
So, looking back, if you could change one thing or do one thing better in your tenure, what would that be?
I think the one regret that I have in my tenure is that we couldn't make a contingent trip happen. So I think there's one thing. But it was initially difficult for us because the admin was more focused on diverting it to interpret. So there was slight issue with that. But I think that's the one thing I could have.
So, a small follow up on that. From what we've heard from seniors, we've seen a dip in participation with cultural activities, like with every next batch. So, how do you think, like for 25 batch especially, you can encourage them to participate more in cultural activities? And
Well, I think one way to do that is that we need to make sure that they see what can be done as part of a cultural club because having more like GB centric events or performances. So once you hook them with that, then they'll be more open to come. The thing with clubs like this is that once you're inside the club, let's say it caught your eye in your first year and you joined it. Towards the end, especially when Pearl happens, it is divided to either performance based or event management based. So with that event management, you have to do because in the end, it's the students who conduct the events and do it. But if you make sure that performance aspect is also there, like people are ready to showcase their talents for high, that'll keep them engaged long enough, and then they'll be able to give that time as well.
okay. So, next question is, what is one advantage and one disadvantage of being Culsec?
One advantage would be that since, as I said, it's very all these culture clubs are very performance centric, so it's easier for GB to engage with them. Like in inauguration, they can just come and watch. So that I felt like whatever work I put in, I could see the response immediately. So that motivates you because you can see the interaction that GB is doing. That motivates you to do more. One disadvantage I think is that because we have to work from forward till pearl, it's essentially the entire third year. Like you have to do all the inaugurations as well, Sanskriti as well, and maybe a contingent tour. That keeps you up the entire third year. So like that is a major chunk of your time that is going into there.
So, what advice would you give for somebody who is considering to run for cult secretary for the next election?
Well, the first thing I would say is that take some time to be sure of it because it's a huge commitment to you. Like a major chunk of your third year, almost all will be gone to that. It'll be difficult for you to devote time to anything else. And yeah, once you have that clarity, then just sit and talk to like juniors, your seniors, people in class. Because if you're someone like that, 2-1 or 2-2, there's still not much of campus that you know. Like you're still in your third semester, fourth semester. So more you talk to people, the more you see their experience, that gives you a perspective that you can use and you can say, okay, what can I do for this? What can I contribute for this?
How do you decide what set of food stalls there will be during Pearl? And okay, so a few juniors from 25 batch have said till now that they find the food stalls a bit overpriced. So, could you elaborate on why they are overpriced?
So the process that we follow for deciding food stalls is we usually approach like one consolidated vendor who has his own set of food stalls and like his range that they can provide for us. So we approach all of them through that person, through that one person who will get them for us. So the price in a sense obviously depends on what deal that we strike with this vendor, because we're not individually approaching the food stalls and making curating them to our thing. We're going through someone else. And it depends on that deal that we strike there, and that is how the pricing is done.
So, the cultural fest in Bitsboa Waves is usually profitable every year. Uh, what do you think are the takeaways from that, and why is the reason like that has not been implemented in Pearl till now?
Well, I think one big advantage that they have over us is the location. Because even though the scale of the cultural events are more or less similar or like not much difference, many people will go there because of the location. Like it will be a trip that they can go there. So that is one advantage that they have. But apart from that, the system also works well. And one thing that I really like from there is that maybe could be eventually implemented here is a fest convener system. So their student union council, they call it, I think the CSA, the Council Student Affairs. They have family concerned with like student activities and like clubs and all. But they have like a separate fest convener for each fest. I think that gives them more mind space and like time to work on like perfecting those 3 days. And then that is something if it's implemented here, it just gives us more flexibility to work with that. So we're not like hassled out the entire year. We just have that time to work on that one specific event.
So, introduction of a fest convener.
Maybe it's not, I think, a quick step that we can take, but eventually maybe we can work a system like that. That will make it much more effective overall.
Okay. So, we have one last question. And so you're Dolite and you have been on campus for the last 3.5 years. So how do you think these 3.5 years in BITS have shaped your life overall as a person?
Yeah, I think when I came to campus, I was very clear that I didn't want it to be about just academics. I want to have an all-round life, like participate in extracurricular activities, which I'm satisfied with how it played out so far. So I can see the difference in like, how comfortable I am or how much more confident I am, given that entire perspective that you've had. And yeah, it's been a wonderful ride.
Uh, do you want to add anything else to the podcast? Any last comments?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking me to be here. I think it's a one way to recap. Like, these are things that I'm nostalgic about, so it's a one way to recap it. Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much, Midhi, for taking out your time to share your journey and give us an inside look into the role of a cultural secretary and the immense work that goes behind making Pearl happen. And thank you everyone for listening and stay tuned for more episodes of the Bits No Night podcast.